it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be a book unhaul. This video is so overdue. I have meant to film it multiple times. I just need to get this video filmed and uploaded. It's time to clean out my shelves, make some more space for some new books. I definitely am a book collector in addition to being a book reader. I don't actually tend to unhaul books very often. I basically, at the end of the year, like to look through my collection and just see, do these books reflect my current taste? Are these shelves a reflection of what I actually enjoy in reading? Considering I usually go through my books at the beginning of the year, these books have been sitting on my floor for several months while I got my life together. And now I'm finally going to show you the books that I will be saying goodbye to this year, that will be leaving my library. Thankfully, this year in my unhaul, I only have 2 books that I have not read. Both of the books are young adult contemporary novels, and I don't really remember too much about the synopsis of either of these books. This is Made You Up and This Song Will Save Your Life. I feel bad because I don't remember what these books are about, but I do remember that both of them are more hard-hitting contemporary young adult. To be honest, I just don't read that much young adult anymore. That's not to say I don't, because I recently just read a YA duology and it might make my best books of the year, but that was a fantasy series, and as a reader, I just don't read very much contemporary fiction or literary fiction overall. And I think if I wanted something that was going to be more hard-hitting, I would want it to be an adult book that would reflect more where I am in life, that would have more resonance with me, who I am today. These books have both been sitting on my shelf for minimum of 6 years, and like I have never picked them up. I don't really feel bad because I got them both on clearance, and I can remember when I got them that I genuinely meant to read them. I have just changed as a reader since I got these, and I'm not gonna get to them. I'm not gonna, so they're gonna get passed on to somebody who will read them and hopefully love them. Next up, I have some more young adult contemporary. I have The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This is the movie tie-in edition. I know that I have read this book. I have no idea if I even liked this book, to be perfectly honest. It's been so long since I've read this. I will not ever read this book again. I'm genuinely not saying anything about the quality of this book because I do not remember if I liked it or not. I just know that I am never going to read this book again, so I'm simply gonna get rid of it. Next up, I am unhauling Shine by Jessica Jung. I don't know if you know this, but I am a big K-pop fan, and I genuinely just got this because the author is an ex-K-pop idol who was in an extremely popular group. Girls' Generation had like such a massive impact on the K-pop industry. I just honestly wanted to get her book because of that. I bought it, I read this, I enjoyed it. It's a young adult coming of age romance story. It involves a girl who's a trainee at a K-pop company. I think this is like really great for a first novel for somebody, and like also it's just like a young adult coming of age / romance story. Like, it's pretty good. I gave it 3 stars and I enjoyed myself, but I'm not gonna reread it, and I also decided that I'm not gonna continue in this series. Don't try to make sense of my brain, you won't be able to, but it was bugging me that I wasn't buying the second book in this series, and so I was like, it's gotta go. So yeah, somebody else will read this and love this. Like, it's a fun time. I don't really have any criticisms of it, but it's not really a book that like necessarily is impacting my life. On pretty much the exact same note, I have Stay Sweet. This is a young adult, also coming of age story with a romance, like very central to like the B plot of it. You follow a girl who is basically trying to like run this ice cream shop. Honestly, this book is pretty much exactly what it seems to be. I think I also gave this 3 stars, but again, I have 0 complaints about this. It was fluffy, it was fun, it was a good time. I thought it was really well written. No complaints, it's just a book that doesn't necessarily reflect my taste, and I'm hoping that by donating this I can get it into somebody's hands that will absolutely love it and fall head over heels for this book. Next up, I have a bunch of young adult books where I read the first book in the series and I'm just not going to continue. They're a bunch of fantasy books. First up is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. I get why people love this book so much. Genuinely, I really get it. I understand the appeal. It just didn't work for me. I felt very like middle of the ground with this book. Again, no real solid complaints about it, but I'm not going to continue this series, so I'm going to unhaul it and hopefully somebody else will read this and it will work for them in the ways it didn't work for me. Everything I said about Strange Case, apply that to The Gilded Wolves. Not really anything to say. It's just that this book didn't work for me and I'm not going to continue the series. Honestly, this video isn't interesting because I'm just saying the same thing about every book. Thank you for the watch time if you've made it this far. Recycle my words. I have In Every Generation and Slayer. These are both Buffyverse books and I read these in a vampire vlog. These are a really fun time. If you want a book that will give you the same feel as watching Buffy, then yes, absolutely pick these up. I do think that In Every Generation does capture more of the Buffy vibe than Slayer, but I think both of them do a good job of making you feel like you're in that world. But at the end of the day, I gave both of them 3 stars. I think that for me personally, when I'm craving Buffy, I'm just gonna rewatch the show even though I've seen every episode multiple times. I appreciate these for what they are. I think they're well executed, well written, and I don't have any complaints about them. I think I just prefer the show. So yeah, I'm gonna unhaul both of these, but again, if you want a YA vampire story, both of these are great. Next up, I have a young adult thriller. This is The Project, and this is a cult book. I am not the person that should have been reading this book. The entire time I was reading this, I just felt so ambivalent the entire time. I felt nothing. Not boredom. I wasn't bored. I was just like, I felt nothing. And I don't know how else to describe it because like usually if you feel nothing, you're bored, but I wasn't. But like also I wasn't really entertained either. So genuinely like this is just not a book for me. I will say though that I think Courtney Summers handled the topics of sisterhood and cults and manipulation and things like that with so much respect and empathy and didn't like sensationalize these topics. So I did want to like commend the writing for that because I think that is so essential for a book like this. It's just unfortunately this specific one just did not work for me. Next up, I am unhauling The Mists of Avalon. If you don't know, I love the Arthurian legend. This is like a super old beat up copy. Like you can see like the spine is warped, all the pages are yellow. I got this at a used bookstore because there's a girl with a sword on a horse and I was like, yeah, sign me up, perfect. But then I opened the book and it actually says to Jessica Jones for Christmas 1990, love Aunt Peggy. That's not me. I don't have an Aunt Peggy, but I just thought it was so cool. Like Child Jess was like, oh my god, another Jessica owned this book and it's got like this lady on a horse, like cool. Basically last year I found out some information about the author and I just no longer want to own this book. Next up I have 2 adult thrillers. It's Local Woman Missing and The Death of Mrs. Westaway. There's nothing wrong with either of these 2 books. I rated The Death of Mrs. Westaway 2 stars and Local Woman Missing was like a 3.5 star read for me. I actually do recommend Local Woman Missing. I think it's really, really fun and entertaining. It's not like a thriller that's gonna like blow your mind or like change like the thriller genre, but honestly, it's a really, really great time and I do recommend it. Both of these books are just going to a new home, which is my mother's house. My mom is a big thriller reader, and while I do think that like there are some thrillers I would would reread. It's not either of these, so I'm just passing both of these along to her and hopefully she will love them. I'm also unhauling Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is a book that while I was reading it, I was really entertained, but then after I finished, I was like, ugh. And like the more I think about this book, like the more I just really don't like it, and I don't want it on my shelf anymore, and I'm unhauling it. I am also unhauling Hide, which is an adult horror novel. It just didn't work for me. Horror is really, really subjective, and I just think that this book needed more time to cook. I do know that some people really, really liked it, and honestly, I'm so happy for them. This was Kirsten White's first adult book, but like also her first horror book, and I just think that overall the book didn't get developed enough for it to be published, which was super unfortunate. Honestly, I should have unhauled this last year, but like it's so pretty and I just really, really love the cover of this. But like also I know that I'm never gonna reread this, and it was genuinely so disappointing the year that I read this because I had such high hopes for it because it sounded so good. So I'm passing this along. Hopefully somebody else will read this and love this, because I do know that like there are some people that do really love this book, but it just did not work for me. Next up, I have a bunch of books that all were featured in my worst books of the year, so I am unhauling them because I do not like them, but I'm not gonna like get into it because I literally have a video talking about why I don't like these books. So the first one is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Goodbye. Next up, we have In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. This one is actually also going to my mom. I don't know what to say about this book. It just didn't work for me. There's nothing wrong with it. I am definitely very much in the small minority. So if you want to read this book, go for it, because apparently I'm the only person who didn't like it. It just didn't work for me and I got bored, but I am hoping that my mom will like it, so I will be giving it to her. I'm also getting rid of Suffer the Children. This is an adult horror novel, and again, lots of people love this. I am just in the minority. I did not like it. I'm getting rid of An Unkindness of Magicians. This is an adult fantasy. Go see that video. It's fine. It's going. Goodbye. Similar with Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. This is another adult fantasy. It's a vampire story. Ick. Yeah, go watch my worst videos of the year, but just ick. Ugh. And then I'm also unhauling Hyperion. This is an adult sci-fi novel. It's the first in a series. I actually did really, really love the first short story in this collection. I just either disliked to hated the rest of them, so I will not be continuing this series. We're almost done. I have 2 series that I am now going to unhaul. I decided at the end of the year, when I was like looking at how many series I was in the middle of, that I was just gonna DNF these series, mainly because they're ones that I have been reading for years and years and years, and I just feel zero motivation to pick up the next book. Sometimes when I'm reading a series, it does take years in between each book for me to pick them up, but like when I look at them on my shelf, I still can like acknowledge, yes, just because this is not high priority, I do want to read this. Like I think about reading it and I get excited. These 2 series were series where like I wasn't excited and I like kind of was starting to dread continuing this series because I was so uninterested in them. Forgive these for being out of order, but the first series is the Lightbringer series, the Black Prism series. I have read 4 of these, and one of them, the last one, I was unable to finish. I'm going to put them down now because they are very heavy. There's a lot to like about these series, and I don't want to discourage anyone to read them, but like it just got to the point where I was just no longer interested in the series. There is some sexism within them, and it's not like in your face, but it's just like a little bit male gaze built into these books, and like the men get treated very differently by the author, and like descriptions and feelings and inner monologues than the women characters do. And so like that combined with the fact that like in the third and fourth book there was a lot of pacing problems as like they were trying to like wrap up this like epic high fantasy series. I don't know if there needed to be another book to fix the pacing problems, but it just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to read that. And I like internally made the decision to DNF this series, and I instantly felt better. I was like, oh my God, you can just not read a book. You can literally just not read a book. Genuinely a life-changing thought, but as soon as I felt relief at the idea of DNFing this series, I knew I was making the right call. And then the other series I decided to DNF, this is honestly my most controversial decision in this entire video. Please do not come for me. I am DNFing the Percy Jackson series. And you know what? Like, I'm not done reading middle grade. I do think that like in the future I might like check this out from the library or something if I decide that I want to give it another go. But what it comes down to is, while I do enjoy middle grade for the whimsy and the sense of peace and well-being and like the good guys winning, and I just, you know, there's something so amazing and enchanting about middle grade, and I do like that. I just feel like there are middle grade series that I would rather spend my time reading those series than this series personally. I don't have any complaints about this series. Genuinely, I had a good time reading all of these books, but when it comes down to it, there's only so many books you can read in your lifetime. I just think that there are books that I would rather read than this series. For now, I am DNFing this series and I am unhauling the 3 books that I have. Okay, there you go. Those are all of the books that I am unhauling from my shelves from 2023. I'm so sorry it took me so long to get this video put together. Thank you so much for being here with me and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. The next time you see an unhaul video from me will probably be next year. I don't do them very often, but if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. Please stay safe this week, stay warm, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!